You're listening to the Intentional Parents Podcast, brought to you by Intentional. Intentional is all about spiritual formation in the family. We desire to bring biblical hope and practical help. Enjoy this week's conversation. All right, welcome back to the Intentional Podcast. Sally Lemos, I think it's around 80. I don't know how many times you've been on, but I'm so glad. And again, just like last time, we've been sitting here for an hour and a half trying to get started, but we just can't because
too much to talk about.
Too much good stuff to talk about. So welcome back again.
Thank you.
Part 2, 3, 4. We kind of about a month ago or more, by the time this airs, we had a great conversation with you about generational trauma, where it comes from, all that beautiful stuff. Well, that's not beautiful, but the healing and the hope and some of the tools around that was really insightful, really helpful. But I know Elizabeth and I got done with that conversation, and I think we all agreed that like there's still a lot more to that conversation, and we don't want to just rehash that. But also, I think we want to make sure that we're doing this topic justice and making sure that we're actually covering all the different various aspects of what this looks like and different tools and resources that we can live into. So I just want to set that up and say welcome back.
Thank you.
Glad to have you again.
I love being here with you guys.
We were talking about, we record these and then I go away and totally forget everything we talked about. And
so do you, right?
Oh my gosh. What was before? What was in the middle? What was after?
Yeah. And then somehow I convinced myself that we probably didn't make any sense, or like it's all my anxiety.
You and Sally are very similar.
100%.
Yeah. And then I listened back to the episode we did with you, and man, it was just so rich and so good. So if those listening haven't listened to, I guess we can call it part 1, go listen to it. So good. And we talked, like Brooke said, about generational trauma. We talked about Exodus, generational sin. What does that look like? I think the thing that really stuck out to me was the idea that if you were raised in a home where one or both of your parents was traumatized, maybe nothing was directly done to you. Maybe you weren't abused. Maybe you weren't, didn't experience a really traumatic event. But if you were raised by a parent with a very activated nervous system, that also affects you. I think that's a lot of people's lived experience.
Yeah.
And what we didn't get we got a little bit of time, but we didn't get a lot of time last time talking about like kind of but maybe for somebody who understands this framework now, is starting to dig into their own story, but is maybe at the beginning.
Yeah.
Of like, what do I do now?
Yeah.
What would be like the next steps? And it's not linear as much as we would like to make it.
Right.
Well, you just do these 3 things in this order and you'll be free.
I wish I had. I wish I could do that. I wish I could give that for myself included. Like, what does that look like?
Yes. Even as we're like trying to plan this episode, we're like, normally we have some sort of path that we're trying to follow. Even this one, we're like, well, we know how to get started, and now let's just have a conversation around it. So that's kind of what today is just what are some maybe a little more practical, even though it's still going to be a bit ethereal, of where somebody would start with all of this and take that wherever.
Well, so I feel like and I don't know, I'm just going to trust that this is the Holy Spirit, but I feel like I am still kind of on the teeter-totter.
Yeah.
With denials on one side and blames on the other side and naming, and that the naming and taming comes from Dan Siegel's work, of how we change, how our bodies, how our minds, how we actually heal and change.
Yeah.
That naming piece, I feel like is that's what we're talking about. That's really how we begin to make some changes and heal.
Yeah.
So kind of what is that, like where we sort of left off was naming is myself or someone in my family has been abused. And so now I'm noticing that something's happening in my nervous system. So that's kind of like the very beginning. And I know that probably stories are better. I know you really like stories better than...
I like all of it. I like stories, but I think stories help bring
Yeah.
alive a concept. But
Yeah. So I think if it's okay, I'll just, and again,
don't ask permission, just
I
go.
feel like little ears probably shouldn't be listening if that feels okay.
Oh, yeah. I think, again, part 2, let's just say it again.
Yeah.
This episode is going to contain some adult concepts and content. So if you are in the car with your kids or listening at home, earbuds, or maybe wait, because these are going to be some pretty mature topics. So
Yay.
now again, say
Now
whatever
again,
you'd like.
here we go. So I think just we touched on a little bit of my story, and I don't want to say this in kind of because I know that there are people out there that this is their reality, and so it's not like this nonchalant thing. But for me, I grew up long history of sexual abuse as a child, and coming out of that, my system was reliant on alcohol, and I had an eating disorder. We talked a little bit about the alcohol last time. For me, that was something that, as a brand new believer, I found myself in a church of people that cared for me. And so it was pretty easy. I didn't want to drink anymore. You know, and part of it was I was so hungry to learn about Jesus.
Yeah.
I'd never read a book in my life, cover to cover, seriously. Because I struggled so much. I was a great student you never would have known, but reading was really hard for me as a kid. And now with a dyslexic daughter and a dyslexic granddaughter, and my dad was dyslexic. I get that was a piece for me. It didn't matter. I wanted the information so bad. I was reading everything I could get my hands on. So I didn't want to be intoxicated anymore. I didn't want to be checked out anymore.
Yeah.
That was a pretty easy shift. The eating disorder was not an easy shift because you have to deal with food
Yeah.
all the time.
Can't cut it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had to face it. So it's kind of, for me, the teeter-totter was, one or the other was at play pretty much all the time. Other than I need to say, I did not drink when I was pregnant with my children. Thank you, Jesus. I did struggle with the eating disorder when I was pregnant with my children. Thank you, Jesus, that they are healthy and I was able to get pregnant and have children.
Yeah.
But I think shortly after I stopped drinking, the eating disorder got pretty bad, where I was losing weight really, really rapidly in a really dysfunctional relationship. And I mean, the way God worked, and I think this is the piece that I want people the to-do is not so much, let me tell you what to do, where to go, but when you're ready, God is going to make it happen.
Yeah.
He brought people in my life that began to see what was going on, begin to support. You want help, you want to go somewhere. And the but God thing that we talked about in the first episode, in a short period of time, there was a million but God things, and an opportunity opened for me to voluntarily enter into a 6-week inpatient treatment for eating disorders. This was in 86. So long time ago, still pretty early in, like when the first time I ever had a conversation with a medical person about an eating disorder, I was 19.
Okay.
So that was 1979. Very little understanding of what it was.
I was going to say, was there even much out?
Very little understanding of what it was.
Okay.
I was told, oh, you're so smart. You're so beautiful. You have the world by the tail. You just need to eat like this. And seriously, we just didn't know.
Yeah.
So this opportunity presented, and again, like a million miracles to get me there. It was so small, 30 beds, Wickenburg, Arizona. It's still in existence.
Did you have kids at this time?
I did.
Yeah.
Wow.
I did.
All three.
All three?
Right?
I did.
Yeah. So they were little.
So logistically, what did the kids do?
I left my kids for 6 weeks.
Was that the hardest thing?
The hardest thing.
Yeah.
And it still is the hardest thing.
Yeah.
But the reality, and this is where I want people to have hope.
Yeah.
If I had not gotten that kind of care, then I wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
Let me just even pause for a second as you're processing that, because even as you're saying that, there's a lot of things going off in my mind. And one of them is that concept that if you don't care for yourself, how can you care for those around you? But that doesn't feel right or even always. It's a hard one. It's a hard sell. Maybe it's a good way to say it. I have a hard time embracing that.
Yeah.
I believe it. I have a hard time embracing it. Not because I don't believe it, but because it's very hard to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Can I add to it? It was never modeled to you. The opposite was modeled to you.
yeah,
I think it's easier to embrace things that were modeled to us and a lot harder when they weren't.
Yeah, because I can't. That'd be probably a whole other season of a podcast to talk about that topic.
Yeah.
But no, I guess maybe as you're just even taking a second to recollect, I'm thinking 1987, right? You're saying
86.
86.
Yeah,
Okay,
86 when I went
86.
into treatment.
We were 1 year old.
I was like just born. But I'm thinking about that time and you had to step away for 6 weeks. That had to have been monumentally hard. What was that process like, even just agreeing to that?
Yeah. And I think, right now, me thinking about that, it kind of sounds horrific.
Mm-hmm.
Where I was at the time, and people were watching me get thinner and thinner. And just to kind of I probably weigh, and I don't weigh myself. I don't have a full length mirror. I go shopping for clothes with other people. I mean, there's lots of things I still do to maintain recovery around body image and taking care of my body.
That's
and
really
being
smart.
able to honor my body. There were people watching me get smaller. So I'm guessing I probably weigh around 130.
Okay.
I was 100
Oh my gosh.
when I went into treatment.
Just
So there were
like
people,
skin and bones almost. Yeah.
people were coming around me that were beginning to see the context of what I was living in, what was happening to me. And there was like this perfect storm where there was a significant blow up. We had plans to go be with friends and do something. And the guys went with the kids. And my best friend, who she's walked with me for 30 years, she's still my best friend on the planet. She was on the phone with me the entire time that everyone was away because I was not safe. I was so depleted. I was not safe.
Yeah.
And it was her parents, her in-laws, her mother-in-law had gone to work. We had a furniture store at the time, had gone to work for the furniture store and began to see the context that I was living in. And that raised a red flag. So God put these people around me, and I had started doing a Kay Arthur precept study. She was like the dig in the word.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I was a baby, and I'm like, how do you do this? Like, the Bible's been here, and like everybody knows everything about me, and I'm going to figure out how to do this. She had an article in a Christian women's magazine, and there was an ad for Remuda in the magazine.
What was it called?
Remuda.
Okay. Oh, that's the place that you
Remuda
went.
Ranch was what it was called. And I remember sitting there with the Lord just thinking, if I could ever go someplace like this and figure out how to eat, I could take care of my kids. I mean, I had that awareness.
Yeah.
But then this storm happened, and it was like the doors just started opening. And I mean, we don't have enough time to go into all the details. But it wasn't like I made this conscious decision to leave my children. I was whisked away to a place where I could heal enough that I could come back and be a mom again.
Yeah. Something in you knew.
I just had to go. And I remember having conversations with my kids. I don't know, my younger two really remember, and I don't even know that Katie remembers this. But my oldest, she turned 7 while I was away. I remember sitting down with her and saying, some things happened to me when I was really little that really hurt. And I really haven't been able to heal. And I do weird things with food. Like I'm not eating my food. And so I kind of need to go get some help. And she was like, well, that kind of makes sense because you have all those hurt feelings in there. So there's just no room for your food.
Wow.
That is brilliant.
I'm like,
wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And their time with me away is part of each one of their stories. I know it was profoundly hard for them. There was 2 weeks during the 6 weeks preparing for what the culmination, which was having family week and spending time with my husband at the time and my dad around, or my mom. My mom did come around what had happened to me, what was going on, that I was encouraged not to have contact with my kids because I needed to stay in the place with my wounding.
Yeah.
You're looking at me like you can't.
I can't even imagine. No, I'm just saying like that's.
I know.
Cannot even imagine.
I know. I couldn't put on the mom.
Yeah.
In order to do the healing
the
healing. But I think what I want to say is the place that I was at, I was in the care of a psychiatrist, a psychologist, and a whole team of therapists. Okay. Art therapy, eating disorder, body image, sexuality, a whole team of people.
Wow.
The first realization for me, because I thought, I'd named all these things that I'm okay. I'd named all these things. My primary therapist was not a generalist. My primary therapist was the person who specialized in sexuality. And I'm like, why is this my therapist?
Yeah.
Because for 10 years of my development, that was part of the naming for me.
Yeah. And your disconnection to that would you call that denial? Like you said, we teeter, we're usually either blaming or in denial.
But
as
not
a coping.
Yeah, but not just denial to the point of a level of dissociation.
Yeah.
In order for to be able to have something like that happen to me and then go home from Portland to our home and go to school the next day.
Yeah.
There's a certain level of dissociation that happens.
Totally.
So I think this is like a really, my story is, this is abuse. This is trauma. Statistically right now, the research that we kind of go with, 1 in 10 people are sexually abused before they're 18.
Yeah, you said that.
Yeah. So that just kind of gives us how many people out there are.
People.
Yeah. We talk about it now. So it's not taboo. We look back at generation and my parents' generation, it was taboo.
Very much. Oh, yeah.
And again, 1974 was when the first laws were passed
for protection
children.
Protect children.
Yeah. So I think what I don't have the 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
But what I do have is I know the one who saved me.
Yeah.
And for everybody, there's a story that's specific.
Yeah.
When we're ready, those things are going to come. And part of it is being open.
Yeah.
I'm thinking with that whole idea of stepping away for 6 weeks, which, in one sense is absolutely honorable and noble, but probably in no way feels like it. And like you're acknowledging, it's not without a cost, right? It's not like it didn't cost you something in your motherhood or cost you something emotionally or cost some sort of...
It cost my children.
Cost your children.
Where did my mom go?
Yeah.
In that whole vein of thinking, I would love to ask you, in your experience and just even understanding how this works, how important is it for us, and what are the types of things that we need to do to prioritize health in our life and in our parenting and in our marriages, right? Like, I think there's a lot of people that are probably listening to this in denial going, it's not that bad. I don't really need to do it. So what are some of the markers? What are some of the, I don't know, maybe that's the wrong question, markers, or like at what point?
Signs?
Yeah,
what are signs
that, hey, you actually need to take the next step into healing this because it's actually that bad. And of course it's okay to prioritize a version of your own healing so that you can be better for those around you.
I feel like it is always better to prioritize our own healing. And I know that that's going to probably ruffle.
The Christian world just says, it's hard because even in the Christian world, it's hard to prioritize because you have all these things like lay down your life, serve everyone around you,
Don't be angry.
No, but I mean, like, not only that,
But
but like,
how do you lay down your life if you don't have this amazing connection with Jesus?
sure.
I mean, I feel like right now in this moment, I am laying down my life.
Yeah.
I couldn't do that before.
Sure.
I mean, and even in this public of a way to lay down my life like this, it takes my walk with Jesus to have that kind of confidence. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
To do that. So
sure.
if I'm not looking into the eyes of the one who created me, we talked about that mirror picture. Like we arrive with somebody that we figure out who we are by looking into the eyes of our parents. Even beautiful, loving, attuned parents are not the one who created us. They have stuff. I have stuff. There are times when my kids are going to look in my eyes and I'm going to be all lost in my own stuff that's going on inside of me.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
If
know that.
I look to the one who isn't ever lost in his stuff, who made me,
Yeah.
that's where I see who I really am. And when I can be with other people that have that too, that see me, then I get the felt experience of being loved in a way that Jesus loved. Then I can love other people.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can't love other people. And I feel like this is a place, and again, I feel like this is probably going to ruffle things, but we are so good at spiritual bypassing.
Oh, yeah.
And I can think of times that makes me cringe.
For those who are not used to or familiar with that phrase, which I love, and it's very helpful, would you just
I'm
give
gonna,
a quick?
I've done it. I've done it too.
Oh, yeah,
It's like
well.
you're in pain.
Okay.
You're just in so much pain.
Yep.
And I can hardly tolerate it because I am managing so much pain of my own that I can't even. I mean, that's really what's going on the inside, that I can't tolerate that you're in pain. I mean, this is at a neurological level, and I'm going to give you a verse. Oh, Brooke, don't be anxious. Philippians 4. Be anxious for nothing.
Oh, it just makes me angry. Even you're saying it. I know you're kidding.
Yeah.
I'm like,
But we mean so well when we do that.
Yeah, you're
We
right.
mean so. But the reason that I have to do that is that there is so much in me that I can't even brush up against what's going on in you.
Yeah.
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 And so really the call to keep a short account has to start with my own healing, with my own
Yeah.
what's going on inside that I can be. And I'm going to go into the internal family systems world.
Yeah, please do.
Imago Dei self, spirit-led self, it's every human being on the planet is created in the image of God. We all have a place of knowing, a place of self that is undamaged. It's like the sun in the sky. Today I don't see it, but it doesn't mean it isn't there, and it doesn't mean it's damaged. For all of us, no matter what's happened,
Okay.
that is there.
Okay.
If I've been in a firestorm my entire life, I've likely never been able to feel it or see it or connect with it, but it's there. And so part of the healing is really being able to slow down and listen to it and give it space and let it grow.
Yeah.
But as I heal, that Imago Dei is what becomes the healing agent for other people. Myself creates
Being calm,
a safe place for self and you to come out.
Yeah.
And then you begin to know, this is who I am.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is what I look like.
Yeah.
We have the spirit living inside of us too.
Yeah. I feel so few people though. I think even understand that, know that that's a reality, and then even lesser of a number know how to live into it. Yeah. You know what I mean? I'm just saying I've had people in my life, you being one of them as well, where you like, there's parts of you that come out that you're not used to, but not because they're not there, but because you just don't usually have permission or even know that they're activated, but someone else made enough space. Most of this happens completely subconsciously, I would add, that there's parts of you that come out, you know, that you're like, oh, I feel comfortable enough to be exactly who I am. That's a rare thing. It's a rare gift. As you're saying this, I'm like, wouldn't it be cool if we could, majority of people, if we could just start a movement of people like learning this so that you could just be healing
Could
everywhere you go.
imagine
That's what I mean. Like
what the church would be like? And so for me, here's the
Exactly.
picture that God's given me. As I begin to look into the mirror of the one who created me, I mean, really position myself in the quietness of, who do you say I am?
mm-hmm.
And just let him love me.
Mm-hmm.
And that began for me when I was at Remuda.
Mm-hmm.
The psychologist that took care of me had a daughter named Emily,
Okay.
who was born on the exact same day.
It's your daughter, Emily.
It's your Emily.
Specificity.
Wow.
And he's talking to me like, why do you want to be here? La, la, la. And I'm like, this is it, Brooke. I just don't remember. I want to be here because I want to be useful. I want to be able to help other people. And he looked at me and said, oh, what'd you get for Emily for her birthday? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, what did you get for Emily for her birthday? And I went on and on about what I got for Emily because she just had a birthday. What I got Emily for her birthday. And he's like, why'd you get her that? I said, because I love her and I know her and she liked it and I loved watching her. And he said, and that's what God's doing with you right here. This has nothing to do with what you're going to do down the road.
Wow.
You are here because he loves you.
Yeah.
Starting from
This is your gift from him. You enjoyed this.
wow.
And then,
Yeah.
which I think is what set the stage for me weeks down the road when somebody said, we really need you here. And I'm like, I'm here. What do you mean? I'm here. I'm doing all the things. I'm such a good student. I did all the things, checked all the box. I was the only one at this level when I left. You
I know
have
the
to-
type.
You have to stay
You're
here.
married to the type.
And I'm
Yeah.
like, I am here. Like, no, we don't want you to go home. You have to stay here. Just you. Here. Not a mom. You're here.
Yeah.
Just, that set the stage for me to be, okay, I can be here. Just so he can love me.
Yeah.
So that I can go home. The other piece for me was like, oh, yay, I came. I'm going to go home and I'll be all better. And everybody thought I was going to be all better. And it's like, nope.
No, just
You
beginning.
label things. You know the lay of the land. And your journey has begun.
Oh gosh. That's
Yeah.
so beautiful. And also I can imagine so hard.
And you're going to not like this either.
Keep going. I'm ready.
I'm still on it.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm not done.
Yeah.
I'm not done.
That was 30,
Because-
however many years ago. 39?
See, I turned 35. It's almost 30 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had a
Wow.
birthday while I was there. I turned 35 while I was there.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
I'm thinking of, we were just talking about spiritual bypassing, and really then you transitioned us to what is God's heart for being with us and just sitting in his love. And makes me think of like the whole idea that the scriptures talk about adoption. That is God so desperately loving us before we've done anything for him. It's what God said to Jesus as he's being baptized before he's done anything. My son in whom I'm well pleased.
Yes.
And you said, we love to quote the
Be
Philippians
anxious
4, be anxious for nothing. But if you, so I immediately opened that. I'm like, what's the context of that verse
Yeah.
being spoken? The phrase directly before it is the Lord is near.
Yes.
Do not, like, I feel like God's heart would be in this tone rather than just spouted at somebody who's struggling. But
Yes.
the Lord is near.
Yeah.
Don't be anxious for anything. But in every situation, by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your request to God. And then I love this. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Like, from this prescriptive, well, just don't do this and do this. That's what we're supposed to do as Christians, to this, we don't have to be anxious because God is with us all the time. We will feel anxiety.
Yeah.
but God is near and he's with you in it. And that's the hope we have, not just that we just do all the right things and you start eating food and you're fine now.
Yeah. And in that, though, the God is so like, rather than Brick, don't be anxious, for me to be, ooh, I see that you're feeling really anxious. Mm-hmm. I'm right here. I don't have to say anything. But if Imago Dei in me, I don't have to fix you. You don't want me to fix you. That's not helpful.
Yeah.
You need somebody to be with you. And that's the same thing with our kids. We're not supposed to fix it, but we're supposed to be with them. Because there's all kinds of stuff inside of them that they're going to discover in the tough stuff if we can be with them. It's kind of like the last episode, the situation with my little Emily when she was scared.
Oh, yeah.
So, and maybe just assuming some people maybe haven't heard it, should I just?
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
just real quick. Yeah.
That was
I feel like I'm
it's a
repeating
great
myself.
context. Yes.
So she's a little skittish right now. She's got some things going on that she's just sensory sensitive.
This is your
And
granddaughter.
My granddaughter. She's not quite 3.
Yeah.
Not quite 3.
Yeah.
Ellie. Oh my gosh. Anyway, she's at our house for a sleepover, and my husband comes in the back door, and the noise scares her, and you can just see her get lit up. And she's like, Jaja, Jaja, Jaja. You can just see the frantic, I scared.
Yeah.
So I just kind of pull her in close and put my hand on her chest and feel with her, oh, I can feel it. You're scared. You can feel, I could feel her heart pounding. And just being curious, your body's telling you you're scared. I wonder, what was that? And I said, the door. I mean, she didn't say the door, but you could tell it was the sound. I was like, you heard the door. That's because, what was the, Papa came in the door. Oh, Papa came in the door. She's safe with her Papa. But rather than saying to her, don't be scared.
Yeah.
I was just with her in the scared. We all need somebody with us in the scared.
Yeah.
We don't have to fix it, but just being with someone else and being okay with you're having a hard time and I'm right here.
Yeah.
And now in a little bit I have to go. But I'm praying. And really, I am praying. That's what it's supposed to be like. But I can't do that if God hasn't met me in here.
Yeah.
So
I can do all the stuff. I can cross all the things. I've done all that too. I mean, I have. I've lived there too. And then I can show up at Bible study and I can give you all the things, but it's not going to change anything other than you're going to feel like I missed you.
Yeah.
I didn't see you. I didn't understand you. You have to try harder. But if I'm doing that work on the inside, then I have space. So for me, it's like my Imago Dei with the Spirit in my mind is just here. And I have protector parts. And some of them need to be there for reasons. But for me to be able to just, all of my parts are there for a reason, and I care for them, and they know me, and I can say, we're okay right now. You can just open up. Just stay right here. That's what's available for people with me. And if I know those parts well enough to know when they're doing this, I'm like, what's happening? It's okay.
Yeah.
I got it. I'm aware. I got it. My parts are much younger than 64 years old.
Yeah.
I can handle this.
Yeah.
They can step back.
Yeah. So what are some of the because I'm loving all of this, but I'm also thinking of like the person listening who's hearing you and they're trying to figure out, and they're maybe where you were, right? They're where you were in that moment before you're just spiraling, and they're 34 or 35 and they're just like, all I know is that this isn't working, that my current way of living isn't working. They feel hopeless because they've tried the basic stuff and it's not working, and it's deeper. What are some of those signs in your estimation or your experience, whether that's clinically, professionally, or just even from lived experience, that, hey, you need to actually get more help than just maybe therapy? Like therapy is wonderful, but depending, even in your situation, depending upon what has happened, you need different kinds of care.
Yeah.
Sometimes more, sometimes less. So maybe what are some of those signs? And maybe that's the wrong question, so take it where you want, but just thinking like practically.
I think when it becomes difficult for us to function, Like I'm having a really hard time getting up and going to work. I'm having a really hard time taking care of my children. I'm having a really hard time doing the things that I would normally do because I'm either too anxious or I'm depressed or I'm just not even really aware anymore of my surroundings. Those are really big red flags that we need more help. And I think for people alongside other people to be able to say, yeah, you're going to be okay, but we need to get you. And that's what I had. We need to get you more help and be willing to say that that's okay. And that another piece of that is medication. I mean, if people are struggling with mental health issues, medication is a very appropriate thing to consider. It's very difficult, but it is a very appropriate thing to consider when you're in that kind of a place.
Yeah.
Ooh, I'm just feeling all the things you're saying because I'm thinking of there's an awake. Like a lot of us don't wake up until our 30s in a lot of ways to this in general, and even to be honest with it. And I know for me that's been more of my story. I mean, ours both, but
I have a question about that. I don't want to deter from where you're going.
Nope. Go ahead.
Because exactly what he's saying seems to be what we've been observing a lot now, being in the stage that we're in. Is it seems like whether it's this is what I'm curious about with you. See what you have to say about it. Is it because you're getting older and you start to be able to just see things differently as you age and hopefully mature, and or is it also seems very common with people who are in their early 30s who also have a couple kids and are starting to almost re-experience their childhood by watching their kids be children, by having their own children? Is it the having kids that starts to bring all of that stuff up in us, or is it just getting older? Or is it both?
I think it's both.
Yeah.
But I can really only speak to my own. I mean, I'm sure there's probably research out there that can inform us, but in my own situation, it was as I was naming some things, there were things that I did not want to do to my children that had been done to me.
Yeah.
And like being really, really clear on that, but also like recognizing, I mean, school was super hard for me. And then all of a sudden I have one that's really struggling in school, and I'm not just able to be present with her and her feelings because all of that I'd never dealt with in me was coming up too.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I got to fix this because I can't handle this.
Yeah.
So I think that we feel that kind of compounding thing happen.
Yeah.
And like I was going to helicopter and control everything so that she didn't suffer the way that I had suffered. And I made a lot of mistakes in that process.
Yeah.
And again, but God, I mean, I just, wherever we find ourselves in whatever it is, the story isn't over.
Yeah. 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 And that's the beauty of all of this, of that, yes, God has given us places like the treatment center that you went to. He's given us people to be able to train people like you and all the things you learned in school, all the things you've learned by having a practice. He's given us medication. He's given us all these things, which is a beautiful gift. And they're all from God. But also he's given us his Holy Spirit. He's given us his incredible withness, Emmanuel, God with us. He's given us so much more than just the clinical help or I start to name and then I heal. You're naming with God and he's grieving with you.
Yes.
And he's guiding and he's leading. And I think it's so beautiful and horribly messy that so much of it happens in the context of family. I mean, it all happens in the context of family, but so often we are going through that process while we are trying to be a good enough parent. And it's so messy and it's so beautiful. I look at the way my kids have, in sometimes a brutal way, just forced me to grow and to face things. And I mean, similar, different journey, but similar. And I have a history of an eating disorder, and I had all these ideas of how I was going to protect my kids, all the things you just said of, I so badly didn't want them to feel the pain that I had experienced starting at 10 years old.
Yeah.
and the pain that I mean, still carry in many ways.
Yeah.
But at the beginning stages of having kids, I wasn't experiencing the freedom that I'm experiencing now. And I had all these ideas of how I was going to basically white knuckle it
Yes.
so that they were protected. And being able to look back now and see the journey that God just slowly, piece by piece, with as much as I could handle at the time,
Yes.
started to show me, well, your plan's not going to work, of like white knuckling and doing everything in your own power to protect them. You actually need to pursue your own healing further than
Yeah.
you've been able to so far. And I look back and I couldn't have done it before them.
Right.
I wasn't aware enough
Yeah.
of how much it had even affected me.
Yeah.
And I had learned ways to manage,
Yeah.
but not actually truly heal.
Yeah.
And it was, they brought about
Yeah.
the healing.
Yeah.
And then, so I pursued therapy for the first time, did EMDR for the first time. It was profoundly helpful, but it really was step one.
Yeah.
And then navigating things with a daughter whose body's rapidly changing has
Yeah.
felt like God's invitation to go a layer deeper. And
Yes.
I get to sit with her and tell her parts of my story and just learn to be with her. I mean, how many times have I asked you, I'm sitting with her and I'm reliving my entire childhood. How do I just be with her? You know, you've helped me navigate all the things coming up for me so that I can sit with her.
Yeah. And so there's the piece that it has to come first for me,
Yeah.
because I can't give it away if I haven't experienced it.
Yeah.
And that's transformation.
Yeah.
I mean, that is exactly Jesus with us.
Yeah.
It's gnosko, I think is the word, knowing him experientially.
Yes.
He's not like a superhero, like, whoop, you're done.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, that's not, I kind of think I want
Nice,
that.
I know.
Sorry, Jesus. I really do.
Oh, it's okay to say. We all do.
Yeah, I want the picture. I
Yeah.
really do. I want
do
the
too.
picture. And I think we've talked about this somewhere in my life, somewhere along the line, my perfectionist got the idea that it's like, oh, it's okay because I'm longing for the garden.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I
Absolutely.
was created for the garden. It's like, okay, that helps me. I
Yes.
mean, that helps me.
That's so funny. I had the same realization years ago. I was on a run and I all of a sudden had this thought, I wonder if us perfectionists are going to enjoy heaven more
I know.
because we have such a deeper longing for the garden, for
Yeah.
perfection.
You guys are all so
You know?
much better than anybody that's not a perfectionist.
I'm not
You are
saying
the
that it's
most-
theologically correct.
I
It's
know.
not at all.
It just
I'm kidding.
anecdotally feels kind of
It
good
does
right
feel-
now.
it probably
My
feels better to you.
perfectionist with your perfectionist, we're
Yes.
kind of high-fiving over
we
here.
like that. We like
But
that.
you
guys
know
are feeling
what?
it. It's true.
Just recently, I don't know, this might even sound silly, but I feel like my perfectionist has constantly been looking back. Like they messed it up. And really, generational sin, if you pull the thread, it goes to the garden for everyone.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
It goes to the garden for all of us.
Yes. Yes.
And then, I mean, I don't know, maybe it was just like what's coming to me right now is like God just turning my face and looking this way. There was an enemy in the garden.
Yeah.
There will not be an enemy.
There will not be an enemy. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
new heaven and the new earth
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
we get to be, and I hope our houses are close together, maybe even closer than right now. And
Yeah.
we're going to be worshiping all the time.
Yes.
There's no enemy.
Yeah.
No, by the
That's
way,
where
that
we're
concept sounds
going.
terrifying and very lame to Sloan right now. So we're trying to help her.
She cries about it.
I know.
Oh, she does.
Oh, yeah, we have great. Well, I mean,
It's forever
because
and ever.
certain people that do not know how to teach the Bible have taught her some things in even church. No offense. And they said some stuff, and it was like, she's like, that just sounds terrible. I was like, yeah, that sounds terrible to me too. It's also not accurate. You know, like what they were trying to explain
Yeah.
to her. She's like, I don't want to stand there and sing for a million years. I was like, it's like, me either.
We were trying
Like,
to help
Yeah,
her
no.
think
Good
of what
news,
was the
that's
best
not
day
what
of
it
your
is.
whole
Yeah.
life. She goes, Disneyland?
Actually,
I was
though,
like, that's a nightmare to me.
just
but
plugging a resource that I think is honestly, it's helpful for adults and kids. Randy Alcorn wrote a book called Heaven, which is helpful.
Yes.
But he also wrote a book called Heaven for Kids. And it is, get it on
Really
an audiobook, listen to it with your kids,
yeah.
give it to your grandkids.
writing this
Sally's
down.
taking notes now.
Yeah.
But we were in Hawaii on vacation and we were driving, like each day we did like a little event or something, or, you know, go to a beach. But depending upon where it was either like 20 minutes, 30 minutes, or maybe less. And we had the ideal of like, what if we listened to this whole book the whole time That didn't happen.
We didn't make it all the way through.
But we did listen to some of it, and it's just a kid asking a very normalized question that any kid would have. And then these are all concepts from the actual book, but Randy basically going through and just saying, actually, here's what we know. Here's the scriptural foundation. Here's as much as we know biblically. Here's what we can assume based upon these things. And it's very practical, very logical, and it just gives like so much perspective. It just helps you, even as an adult, I would say, listen to it with your kids because it is actually very interesting, not boring at all. It gives you the reminder of the reality of the kingdom of heaven, that there is a heaven and there is an earth and there is a spiritual realm. We know that, but we don't live like we know that. So
and he answered a lot of the questions, like a kid asks a question and then he goes into
it. Like, will you wear clothes in heaven?
Clothes in heaven? That's what I was thinking of.
I
Like
like
things
that
that
one.
kids are thinking about.
Yeah.
Like, because I remember laying in bed at night as a kid and probably a teenager too, thinking about eternity and thinking it sounded horrible.
Yeah, that's
like,
exactly where Sloan's
trying
at.
to get myself excited about it, but being like, that sounds horrible.
But what was horrible is how it was described to you. And this is why I'm saying this resource, because I think it actually gets your kids, gets even you as a person excited about the reminder that this is only one part of our
We are
life.
just passing through.
This is just part of it. And it's a huge gift. And well, it's also funny because I think even like your dad has all of these things that he thinks are going to happen in heaven. And I still cannot figure out what his biblical basis for it. And he's like, I think we might fly in heaven, but he'll tell our kids this stuff. And I'm like, I don't think that's happening.
And he definitely thinks dogs will be in heaven.
And I was like, okay, and maybe you could get there, but I think this is just how you feel. But then the kids are like, we're going to probably fly in heaven. And I was like, he doesn't know that. He does not know that. And then like the walking through walls thing, like that's another one. Will we be able to walk through walls? Like there's actually some biblical basis for that. But I'm also thinking, is that really the hill to die on? But can we walk through walls?
Kids are curious about these
No.
things.
I know. I'm saying though, it's just fascinating on all levels.
Yeah.
Get it. It's a great resource. And I think it's a very helpful one in regards to heaven, but that's not what we were talking about.
But it is. But I think keeping that
Perfectionism
perspective
is so helpful.
of where we're going is so helpful in just kind of normalizing the reality of. I feel like this is a place for so many people. Like, if God is good, why am I suffering?
Oh,
Yeah.
If God is good, why did He take my child? If God is good, it's just, these are just
Big.
anguish. It's
Yeah.
anguish
Yes.
to try to make sense of how can God be good in the midst of the suffering. If I get stuck in the suffering without a view of where I'm going,
Yeah.
even with Jesus, when I'm lamenting, when I'm like in the midst of naming things and the pain. So I'm going to tell another Judy Renner story. I hope it's okay that I say her name. She was walking alongside me and I was going, this was just like I had just gotten home from Bermuda. Things had changed in my life. My kids were gone with their dad. I went to a women's retreat at Camp Tadmore. My best friend on one side, Judy on the other side, and Judy had prayed for me to grieve in a healthy way till the snot ran down my face. Seriously. And we were praying, and they were praying over me, and I was crying so hard, but I was holding people's hands where I could not catch my things, that it was like, I was leaning over enough that it's just falling on the ground.
Yes.
That is, when we're
That's
in
beautiful.
that place, if we don't have some sort of hope moving forward of what that's going to look like.
Yeah.
And you can tell Sloan what I think heaven's going to be like.
yes.
I don't know if I have a biblical basis, but the idea of me giving Emily a birthday present and her loving it so much and me delighting in her loving it,
Yeah.
I feel like it's going to be God with all of His kids. He's given us all of His best gifts, and we are having a blast
Yeah.
together.
Yep.
And
I
He's
love
just delighting, and us delighting in all of the gifts that He's given
Oh,
us.
I so agree. And there's so many things that. Were you going to say something?
No, I'm just letting that sink in.
Yeah.
And that's a little bit what I've been telling her. It's like the best day of your life.
Yeah.
Over and over and over again.
With your favorite friends
Yes.
that love Jesus.
Yes.
It makes me want to have all my friends love Jesus.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, this is a whole other topic and episode, but that's one of the reasons why it's so important. I think so many of people, even when I was a kid, were scared into heaven. It's like hell and like a hyper fixation on hell. That was my growing up Pentecostal experience. And it was motivating on one front. But it's interesting now because we really don't talk about hell, and there's so many different views and understanding of hell. And I would say that there's a lot of really compelling arguments about maybe the idea of torturing people forever is not the full biblical view. And we know that very clearly. I'm not going to get into that here. That said, sin is real.
Yes.
Satan's real.
Yes.
Hell and versions of it are real.
Yes.
And then when we don't make space to talk about that, it's really easy to forget even some of the why. Like, why do we need to be saved? Well, because sin is so destructive. And I mean, your story today is an example of sin being so destructive.
Yes.
And so I just bringing it back to like, I think we all have a responsibility, especially as parents, as trust is changing in institutions over the last 30 years.
Yeah.
Trust has moved from institutions primarily to family. So now families are the ones even more than institutions like churches, schools. Most people don't trust these institutions anymore, those who lead them.
Yeah.
So families have a responsibility, moms and dads specifically, to help their kids know what is okay and what is acceptable. So it is important for you to like teach your kids about these dynamics, heaven, hell, sin.
Yes.
Not to scare them, but to like, there's a real thing that you're being saved from.
Yeah.
And I know that's not fully the conversation we're having today, but it's just helping me see this whole picture.
It does bring us back to the Exodus 20, which is where we started part 1, where the whole, it'll be passed, the sins of the father will be passed or visited the third and fourth generation. And it comes on the heels of have no other God before me.
Yes.
I'm a jealous God. It's letting us know that there is evil. I mean, what happened to me was sin that happened to me. And then to try to protect myself and function and do all those things, I had my own sin and that hurt other people too, you know, and it's just, but what God is saying is, I have something else that's so much better. It's not like shame on you. You're awful. If we're judging each other, piling on the shame, nobody's going to get better because all we're going to do is hide.
Yeah.
But if it's like, this is what this is not keeping a list and you've done this wrong and all this stuff. This is more and more growing into this amazing world that God has for us, that I want that more than I want anything else. There are times that it's like, I would rather, and I have a part that loves to shop. And sometimes it's like I'm a little overdone and I'd like to just look sort of, let's just kind of check out this website. The reality is I really need to just kind of unpack whatever's happened with Jesus. That's a much smaller version of other things that I've done in my life. And God is saying, when you're feeling a little done, come to me. Come to me.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for you. Come tell me.
Yeah.
Come unpack it with me. Call a friend. Unpack it. Don't avoid it. Unpack it. And then go rest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful way, I think, to end our conversation. And the reason we're going to have to end it and say that we're ending it is because it would be very easy to just keep going, as we know per our conversations. But Sally, I just want to say again, thank you for your vulnerability, transparency, wisdom, experience, education. Excited to see what God is going to do with you in these next decades. Really excited. And we get to watch it.
I just want to say thank you to both of you for making it safe. For me to be vulnerable with you. To show up and love you. And to be able to give the gift that I believe God's calling us all to give.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's an honor.
It's an honor.
It really is.
We learn from the best. Learning from you on that one. Absolutely. And I would say also, I think it's a really cool thing. Where can people find you? Mention your website, just if people want to learn more about Sally.
newbloomtherapy.com.
Yep.
Yeah.
We'll put the link in the show notes and we'll put social links and stuff. But yeah, follow along with what Sally's doing. There's a lot of cool things in the world that I think she's not only doing, I don't think she's doing, I know she's doing, but excited to see how God continues to just use all that he's put in you. And even just, that idea of making our stories count. They count anyway, to your point, like earlier. It's not about if God's going to use you. It's like, hey, this is for you. Like before it's for anyone else, it's for you.
It's for you.
And if it ever becomes for somebody else, like that's to be determined down the road. But it's also beautiful to see even right now, like there is this obvious, unforced, God wants to also redeem and help other people through the pain. And I think that's a beautiful thing. So thank you for letting us into the journey and seeing it clearly and getting to see, front row, just how God is redeeming your life. So thanks for jumping on the show.
You're welcome. I love being here.